Red Dead franchise has sold over 110 million copies, but 82 million of those copies came just from Red Dead Redemption 2. So how does a series just randomly create the 4th best-selling game of all time? Well, they don't. So I'm going to play every Red Dead game ever made to see where this series got its start and how it became the juggernaut it is today. It all started with a kid, a fire, and his father's revolver. Everything we know and love about Red Dead began with this title, Red Dead Revolver. Originally it was pitched by Capcom to Angel Studios and named SWAT, short for Spaghetti Western Action Team. Things turned sour during development though, and the project was eventually abandoned. That would have been the end of it, except everyone's favorite Rockstar stepped in, bought Angel Studio, renamed it Rockstar San Diego, and scooped up the rights to make Red Dead Revolver. This is one of the core games in my memory. A few titles just stick with you, even from childhood. For me, Red Dead Revolver was one of them. You start off the game as a teenager, a young Red Harlow. You're doing the tutorial, shooting your mom's pots and pans, but then a group of bandits roll up, burn your house down, and kill your mom and dad, officially starting our old Western Batman arc. Except this Batman had no problems with killing. He reached into the fire, pulled out his dad's revolver, and shot off the arm of the leader of the bandits. So now we've got a kid with a burned hand, a dead family, and a score to settle, which brings us to grown-up Red Harlow after a classic time skip, who now makes ends meet as a bounty hunter. Our first mission had us traveling through Twin Rocks. Red and his dog encounter a merchant named Curly Shaw, who offers to sell Red some goods. Their trade gets cut short though by members of the Bloody Tom gang, who make the mistake of threatening Red. And this is where we finally get access to one of the most iconic things in Red Dead, Deadeye. This is the coolest mechanic of Red Dead, where time slows down and you can select exactly where you want to shoot the enemy. This is even further made cool when it's used in duels later in the game. So after taking care of the Bloody Tom gang, it was time to take them in dead to cash in the bounty with Sheriff O'Grady. Only problem? The town was overrun with another gang. You know, if media has taught us anything, there's 3 things you don't mess with about a man: his family, his car, or his fucking dog. And this ugly gang shot Red's dog. So yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. And we went full John Wick on that gang, winning a 1v23.
Hope that serves as a lesson to you boys to never shoot my damn dog.
The sheriff took some wounds in the chaos though, so now we need to get him to the nearby town of Brimstone via train. But what's a western without a train robbery? This bandit's trying to rob the train, challenges Jack Harlow. I said Jack Harlow again. God damn it. This bandit trying to rob the train challenges Red Harlow. Unfortunately for him, Red is quite deadly with a revolver. We made sure to sneak in a few nut shots as well. Shout out Butters. That doesn't end the trouble though. We end up on top of the train and have to fight our way back to the engine room to stop the bandits from killing the conductor. Along the way, we managed to get ourselves killed a few times, namely via Molotov cocktails, with these obstacles the train would run under. The PS2 was known for having some of the best platforming parkour games of all time. Red Dead Revolver was not one of them. Once we finally made it to the conductor, we had to fend off banditos for 3 whole minutes, and that would be the end of the level. Next stop, Brimstone. Brimstone serves as a sort of hub for this game. After each mission, we return here, where we can stock up on ammo, buy new guns, and other weaponry. It is also where we pick up the next mission from Sheriff Bartlett. The game continues in this general pattern. Kill bandits, something goes sideways, fight your way to the next area, more shit goes wrong, more dead banditos. Keeps escalating though, because eventually you start playing with a few different characters, such as Jack Swift, Annie Stokes, Buffalo Soldier, and my personal favorite, Shadow Wolf, Red's cousin on his mom's side, with each of them having their own small missions and plot. The real turning point comes once we've met the whole gang and done a few more quests. We finally get a lead on who exactly our father's traitorous partner was and where we can find him. Turns out Annie Stokes reveals that Governor Griffin is actually our father's partner, the one referred to earlier as Griff. So we storm his mansion, fight our way through, and engage Griffin in a duel atop of it. Red puts him down, avenging his family once and for all. And afterwards, Red drops one of the hardest one-liners of all time.
It never was about the money.
Honestly, this game had aura. The loading screens were actually, just let me show you. You can't tell me with a straight face that isn't some of the most badass shit of all time. Red Harlow alone had some of the best lines in early gaming. He was like a mix of Batman, John Wick, and Dom Toretto. Family, ass-kicking, and badass one-liners about money. Speaking of family ass-kicking, there was a split-screen multiplayer mode for Revolver. We could run around shooting each other. I very vividly remember hopping on the PS2 with my brother and going at it in dogfights. It was honestly pretty well fleshed out. You can unlock characters through buying things during the campaign and by beating certain bosses. The collection of characters almost felt like I was playing like a WWE game, and I loved every second of it clearly, as I still remember it quite well. I love Red Dead Revolver. Even playing it 22 years later, it still felt really fun. Some of the gameplay is a bit dated and its PS2 controls. Let's see how Rockstar would follow this bad boy up 6 years later with... If you've never heard of this game, you're not really missing out actually, because it's a Facebook game. Yeah. So, picture this. It's 2010. The economy is still on life support. Lady Gaga is wearing a meat dress to the VMAs, and Rockstar's about to drop the highly anticipated Red Dead Redemption, and the hype is building. Meanwhile, Facebook gaming is absolutely booming. Everyone and their mom was addicted to Farmville, and everyone wanted in. So about a month before Redemption launched, Rockstar dropped this little dueling game on Facebook as a teaser. Get people into that Red Dead mindset before the thing hit real shelves. And honestly, it was kind of a genius marketing move. Although, when I actually went to replay it for this video, I found out it doesn't exist anymore. In 2012, after some internal Facebook policy changes, Gunslingers just got quietly pulled since maintenance was going to be a hassle. It was lost to the internet void like a tumbleweed in the wind, which makes this the only Red Dead game that is genuinely impossible to play today. Luckily, I did play it when it was around. Bear with me though, I was like 8. I remember you would like create an outlaw. I didn't mind something stupid like pork chop, because of course I did. Then you'd pick a class, outlaw, fast hands, or sharpshooter, I think. And from there, the whole game revolved around challenging other Facebook users to duel. Win and you'd earn skill points to dump into your stats, with each playing off of each other with their own strengths and weaknesses. Here's where it got interesting though. The duels were actually heavily luck-based. You get a maxed out stats and still get absolutely embarrassed by someone who just made their account 5 minutes ago. So imagine 8-year-old me grinding duels for weeks, building up pork chop into what I thought would be an unstoppable gunslinger, only to get dropped by somebody's toddler who clicked the wrong button. The game didn't care about your grind and would constantly humble you. There was a thing called the posse system too, where you could recruit your friends into something like a sort of guild or clan thing, and the game tracked all your battles, so you could go back and re-challenge people or taunt them into rematches.
Hey, quiet on that side now, isn't it, boy?
The trash talk potential alone made it worth it. Now, will I be giving you a deep, thorough, critical review of Red Dead Gunslingers? Of course not. It's a Facebook game that no longer exists, and I was in like the 3rd grade when I played it. What I can tell you is that somewhere out there, the person who beat Porkchop in their first ever duel has no idea they created a villain origin story. But Gunslingers would just be the warm-up, the appetizer, because about a month later, Rockstar dropped the game that changed everything.
It's John Marston!
There are games you play, and then there are games that stay with you for years after you put the controller down. Red Dead Redemption is the second kind. Now, full disclosure, thanks to the relentless persistence of the YouTube Shorts algorithm and my doom scrolling, I've already seen the ending of this game. I've seen the barn, I've seen John Marston walk out and get lit up by 15 dudes like it's the worst casting couch video in history, but a story isn't just about its ending. I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the writing, the world building, and the mechanics that made this game a legend. And the game didn't waste any time upon delivering that. We stars John Marston, a rugged, badass-looking outlaw being escorted by some very government-looking suits. They sent us on a suicide mission to kill our former brother-in-arms, Bill Williamson. And Bill isn't exactly a man of many words.
You implore me. You always were one for fancy words.
He dropped our asses with the swiftness after making a mockery of us. Left for dead, we're rescued by Bonnie McFarlane. She's a local rancher who pays to have the lead pulled out of our gut, and in return, we're pulling shifts on the farm. This is where Rockstar's brilliance shows. Instead of a floating press X to herd tooltip like Ubisoft would do, the game disguises its tutorials like an immersive manual labor. You're herding cattle, trolling the land, and breaking broncos. You aren't just learning the buttons in some weird tutorial level, you're learning how it felt to live in the West. I got the horses in the bag. Boots just like the man. While I was playing Pretend Rancher, I noticed something. I started looking at John's face, namely the scarring, and it felt strangely familiar to me. See, if you go back to Red Dead Revolver, Red Harlow had that same distinct scarring across both cheeks. And then I looked at Bonnie, a strong-willed, feisty, charismatic rancher whose home gets attacked by bandits, whose barn gets sets on fire, only for the protagonist to charge into the flame to save the animals. That's literally fucking Annie Stokes' homework with the name changed. But it doesn't end there. John Marston, orphaned young, facial scars, working as a bounty hunter for a government that wants him dead. It's like Rockstar took the DNA of Revolver, polished the rough edges, and realized that those characters were too good to leave in a linear arcade shooter, but they couldn't just say it was Red Harlow. It makes sense why Rockstar said that Revolver isn't history in this universe, that it's like a campfire legend, a tall tale that people tell in the world to their children of the legendary bounty hunter, Red Harlow. So John is the real world version of a myth, and that is exactly what makes this world feel so awesome. See, I've played open worlds before, it's kind of my whole thing. In these games, you're the center of the universe, the world is your oyster to do with. But in Red Dead, I realized pretty damn quickly that the world doesn't actually care about John Marston at all. I'd be riding to a mission and see a hawk dive bomb a rabbit in the brush, or stumble across some poor soul getting mauled by a group of coyotes, or a woman grieving grieving over her husband who was just executed. This game just had so much going on, even when I wasn't doing anything. It made the world feel lived in a way that most games in 2010, and hell, most games now, just can't even replicate with 5 times the budget. And that brings me to the real villain of this game. It's not just the Vanderlyn gang or the government, it's time. The game is set in 1911, during the death of the American Wild West. It's being suffocated by train tracks, telephone wires, and federal agents in suits. You can feel the tension in every conversation with the people who settled this land, such as Bonnie. John is a man who knows how to handle a repeater. He has no idea how to handle a world that's replacing horses with automobiles. It's the death of the West played out in real time, which is honestly a really cool and unique angle to take for a Western style game. And every time I did a favor for the government, I felt like I was digging John's grave just a little bit deeper. You're an outlaw being used to clean up the last of the other outlaws so the civilized world can move in and forget you ever existed. Even the morality system felt a little different to me. In other games, being good or bad is just a way to unlock some different ending or a shiny new power. But here it would actually have some serious consequences. When I chose to help a stranger on the side of the road instead of robbing them, it didn't feel like I was just checking a box for a Paragon trophy. It felt like John was trying to prove to himself that he wasn't just the monster the government said he was. It's called redemption for a reason. And even though I know how it ends, even though I know that redemption usually comes at a high price, playing through these quiet moments makes the inevitable barn scene feel less like a fail state, more like a tragedy I'm complicit in, knowing that in the end I tried to be a good man. Or in my case, accidentally commit 19 war crimes, 37 felonies, and 52 counts of murder in 13 seconds. See, I got into a death match with the local deputies, all because I tried to do good. I tried to stop a man from sexually assaulting a hooker, but I accidentally kicked the hooker, causing the local authority to shoot me, and naturally, I just shot back, not realizing who it was.
Oh, she got a gun. I got a knife, bitch. Welcome to Britain.
This caused a cascade of events leading to me shooting up the entire town, the local wildlife, and random stagecoaches as I rode away from the Geneva Convention breaking events I just caused. And it's exactly what makes a perfect open world game. The ability to play however the hell I want to, and to live with the consequences of that. And just like in real life, there would be no happy endings in Red Dead Redemption. John Marston gets betrayed in the end by the government after being forced to wipe out the rest of the men he once called brothers in the Vanderlyn gang. While some people might not like a sad or tragic ending, I find them to be some of the best experiences. Realize that despite everything you did, all the good you tried to do, it all results in death in the end. And that's not about the destination, but about the journey. And no game makes that feel truer than Red Dead Redemption. So yeah, what if we just made it zombies? This was probably the exact question that was asked in some office within Rockstar San Diego's headquarters. Because who the hell would look at Red Dead and be like, oh yeah, it needs a zombie mode. The worst part is that the game is actually a really solid game as well. I was expecting this to be some gimmicky bullshit, but no. The game starts off on John Marston's homestead. Then all of a sudden, Mr. Uncle Lumbago bursts through the door looking like a crack fiend and bites John's wife. But then after dropping Uncle's dumbass with a few shots to the dome, our now zombie wife bit our son, turning both of them into zombies. So with our now zombie family trying to bite our fingers off, we hogtie both of them and toss them onto our bed and rode off into town to try and find out what's going on. So where we end up getting to the gameplay loop of shooting zombies and trying to rescue survivors to start rebuilding towns to stop this plague. So whilst on my grand journey of slaying bitches, we end up getting a tip from a random hillbilly looking guy that there's these savage zombie Sasquatches out in the woods that we should really take care of them. But I'm pretty sure he lied to our face in hindsight. We took off after these beasties nonetheless, fighting and killing them one by one from afar until we came across the last one, and I'll just let the game speak for me here.
You eat babies!
You have to survive. Everyone knows that.
Make it stop! You eat babies!
I'm a terrible person, but unlike me, this game is quite amazing. It was something that could have just been a dumb throwaway game. It made an actually fun experience, and I think that deserves credit. But now the game you've all been waiting for.
When the time comes, you gotta run and don't look back.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the greatest gaming experiences ever made, in my opinion. Which is insane because prequels usually don't do nearly as well as the original, but this one absolutely dwarfed it. So how exactly did Red Dead Redemption 2 become the 4th best-selling video game of all time? Well, it starts with the characters, and specifically, it's one of the most immersive casts I've ever seen in gaming. We've got Arthur Morgan, our character and a member of the Vanderlyn gang, alongside familiar faces from RDR1 like Uncle, Dutch, Bill, Javier, and of course,
Rip Van Winkle. It's John Marston, my God!
The First time I had played RDR2, I had absolutely no idea what was really going on because I hadn't played the original. But going back and experiencing it with full context turned this into a completely different game, in a good way. You get to see exactly why the Vanderlyn gang fell apart and why John Marston ended up hunting them down reframes the whole game. And Arthur actually ends up becoming an even more compelling protagonist because of it. His whole story is about trying to be a good man even knowing his death is inevitable. The story starts out deceptively simple. I'm an outlaw in a gang, we're on the run from a failed heist in Blackwater and it's absolutely freezing. Our job is to get this band of hooligans out of there. We run into rival gang, the O'Driscolls, pretty early, light them up, and get moving. At some point, I accidentally hit a button that threw me into first person.
On behalf of the O'Driscolls, suck my cock.
What? First person Red Dead's fun. Oh, that almost looked like my cat. I was almost happy for a second. I thought it would be an incredible idea to turn this into Call of Duty Redemption 2. That lasted for about 4 minutes before I came to my senses and played the game properly. Should I try a first person run though? Anyway, along the way we stumble onto plans for a big score, a train belonging to a high-rolling oil tycoon named Leviticus Cornwall. This is where you start to see the first real cracks in Dutch, his inability to separate his hunger for money from the safety of the people around him. He and Hosea butt heads, but we rob the train anyway and pocket a decent little score. Once the Force tutorial finally releases you into the wild, we find ourselves near a town called Valentine. After setting up camp, I headed into town and picked up a bounty for a snake oil salesman named Benedict Albright. Fighting him was easy enough, but when we tried to hand him over to the sheriff, he backed off a cliff and fell into the river. So naturally, we're now on horseback, chasing him down the riverbank until I could give him a clean lasso throw and yank him out the water. What I really appreciate about that is that other games would have just cut to a cinematic here, but RDR2 makes you do it. You have to ride, aim, and land the lasso throw. But eventually, after taking him in, it was finally time to do some work with Uncle. Now, if you're not familiar with Uncle, he is the gang's resident doing absolutely nothing specialist. The man has never seen a hard day's work in his life, and his lumbago conveniently flares up to the exact second anyone needs help lifting something heavy.
It's the lumbago.
But Dutch still keeps him around for some reason, truly a man ahead of his time. So Uncle, Arthur, and a couple of the younger adult girls from the gang head into town to do some investigative work. On the way, passed by a guy whose horse broke free of his coach, and Uncle delivers his signature line, "Oh, I've got lumbago. It's very serious." That bastard. A few minutes later, we run into some O'Driscoll boys outside the saloon, blocking the exact path to a quest marker I wanted. These guys clearly didn't understand who they were dealing with because I murdered them all, but not before they served me up the meanest punch combo I've ever eaten in a video game. But that quest led us into the noblest of men and a woman, where some guy wants us to track down famous gunslingers and ask whether a certain Jim Boy Calloway was as legendary as people claimed. This eventually brought us to the front door of one Miss Black Belle, one of the most notorious female gunslingers alive, and she makes that very clear almost immediately, as a whole wave of bounty hunters appeared at her front lawn, and she blows them to smithereens with hidden explosives, and we helped her clear out the rest. After that, we headed back to camp and linked up with old man Hosea for some bonding, a hunting trip specifically to get food for the gang, and ideally, this big old bear. But first we had to sell this enormous horse I'd taken to calling Brutus, and traded him for something smaller and quicker. Hosea then led us straight into the middle of fucking nowhere mountain country, where we began tracking the bear's prints and scent with Eagle Eye until we were close. We decided to set some bait to lure it out, but when nothing happened, we went to check and see if we did it right. You know that classic trope where a cartoon fuse isn't working? You walk up to it and then it explodes? Our version of that was a half-ton grizzly bear charging at our faces. We spooked it off, but Hosea had seen enough. His life flashed before his eyes or something, because that man turned around and went straight home. We, however, would never duck a fade, so we tracked it down. Finding the grizzly didn't take too long. We landed the shot, hit it clean in the head. The bear did not care. It hit it in the head again. Still didn't care. By the third shot, it tackled us into the ground and started ripping into us, but we stabbed at its gut and got one more shot up before finally finishing the kill. What this damn does better than almost anything else is fill in the space between missions. Despite the travel times being genuinely long, there is always something happening, a hunt, a stranger quest, a rival gang rolling through at the wrong moment. You're never bored because the world won't let you be. My personal hobby was shooting birds out of the sky, but that's a story for another time. The fact that RDR2 didn't win Game of the Year and lost to the God of War reboot is frankly insane to me. Though I haven't played it yet, every God of War game ever made video, maybe? The point here is, this game is absolutely peak. Excellent writing, outstanding voice acting, and a gorgeous open world setting in the Wild West. The only complaints I really ever see is some people who try to sprint through the main story and then complain that missions feel too spread out. Maybe it's just that I came from Skyrim, where the entire point of the game is to do literally anything except the main quest, but RDR2 might just be in my top 3 games of all time now. And then of course, we can't talk about Red Dead Redemption 2 without speaking on 2 of its most iconic moments. The first is the rescue of Jack Marston, John's kid, who gets kidnapped by the Braithwaites and handed off to Angelo Bronte. a powerful crime boss in Saint Denis. So the gang never ducks a fade and rides out, storms his mansion, and tears through his entire operation to get the boy back. It's one of those missions where the game just lets you finally feel the full power of what this gang is really capable of when they're actually unified before everything starts falling apart. Getting Jack back safe is a relief, but also marks one of the last moments in Red Dead where the Van der Linde gang still feels like a family. Everything after is just that slow unraveling, until we get to the ending. Arthur Morgan contracts tuberculosis throughout the game. His coughing starts as a simple throat clear, but by the final act he's coughing blood. The decay is gradual, and it's absolutely brutal to watch. Then after potentially hundreds of hours of outlaw work where we reach the precipice, we find out Micah's been a rat the entire game, feeding our every move to the Pinkertons. Dutch refuses to believe it, which leads to his final confrontation atop the mountain. If your honor is high, Arthur redeems himself. He helps John Marston escape and dies watching the sunset. If your honor is low, however, Red Dead really does have no happy endings after Revolver, but there is still technically one game left to cover. Red Dead Online was the online mode attached to Red Dead Redemption 2, and the Red Dead series is no stranger to multiplayer attempts. Revolver had its co-op battle mode, and then Redemption had its own multiplayer that I believe is still going strong on Xbox from what I've seen. But Red Dead Online was supposed to be their best work yet. After the massive success of GTA 5 Online, people thought Rockstar would see this and properly capitalize, but from my understanding, they did not. It suffered from the classics like a crap ton of hackers and bugs, and also the game just never really got consistent content updates. Because of the much slower economy of Red Dead, there wasn't as much room for microtransactions, so Rockstar just ended up cutting the core in development and pulling the team into GTA 6, which is supposedly still being made. There's some weird curse about the 6th game in a series. Both Elder Scrolls and GTA 6 better released by the time I'm a granddad. When I went to go play it, everything was dead. There wasn't a single person online, so I felt a little gypped after spending 15 minutes making my very handsome outlaw. But now the question everyone has been waiting for: which Red Dead game do I think is the best? Well, that's a pretty obvious answer. It's Gunslingers. Sorry, it's my lumbago. It's serious. Get up! Red Dead Redemption 2 was by far my favorite experience, but I would say without any quiver in my voice that every single Red Dead game, aside from, the Facebook game, is a great experience that you should play. Though Red Dead Redemption 2 has that perfect mix of really good gameplay and being one of the prettiest games I've ever played. And then on top of all of that, it's one of the best written stories of all time in a video game as well. But then now I've played all the Red Dead games. What game series should I play next? Let me know in the comments down below, and hit that subscribe button to help cure my lumbago. Get up!